Are Zillow leads worth it?
Yes. All right, next topic. Imagine that was the end. Are Zillow leads worth it? This is a great question because I know when we've brought agents onto our team, some of the things they said when they spoke to other real estate teams are like, well, this team, they've got Zillow leads and those leads are amazing. So we're going to talk about just a little bit of the conversion rate of a Zillow lead versus maybe another lead. Is it really worth it? So I love this topic because it comes up a lot. It's very important. And if you're a realtor, in my opinion, I feel like they're kind of predatorial towards real estate agents in a lot of ways. And so...
well, that's what we're going to break down today, right? So here's the things we have to think about. So one of the things we see is I just see on all of the mastermind pages and Facebook pages and people reaching out and questions and people that we've brought into EXP and we're helping them build their lines and their teams and everything like that. Everybody's looking for more leads almost always. Everybody wants, especially in this market, we need to do as much as we can to try to get in front of people. Let's face it, as much as people may like them or not like them, they are the number one search site out there.
Absolutely.
Right? So because of that, they charge a pretty hard premium. So the first thing you have to look at is what's your budget? Because I find that a lot of realtors will come in and they'll say, well, should I do Zillow leads? What should I do? And you ask them their budget and they say, well, I can spend $500 a month. And for a new agent that is maybe solo, $500,000 a month, that's probably a pretty good budget for somebody, right? There's a lot of new agents that don't have that, right? Here's the thing. How many leads is someone going to get spending $500 a month if they choose Zillow as their avenue? One.
Because it's like, I know Zillow, which is interesting that people don't realize, they think they're paying for ads. You're actually paying for impressions. And like Zillow says, like you need like 5,000 impressions. But when you really break down, like 5,000 impressions is only like 1 to 2 leads. So it's not a lot.
Yeah, so the average Zillow lead, at least in our market, everything is different from market to market and zip code to zip code, because obviously as pricing goes up, then the lead pricing goes up. But we're typically being quoted anywhere from $400 to $500 per lead with Zillow. The biggest thing to find out, I think, is really what is your budget first and foremost. Because if it's only $500 or $1,000, if you only had 2 leads coming in a month, imagine, do you think you're going to sell those 2 leads? I mean, we're going to get into conversion in a minute too, but but you need a 50% conversion to get just one of those, and chances are very good that that is not happening, right? Now you have to figure out, all right, maybe your budget is a few thousand a month. Maybe it's 5,000 a month. Well, 5,000 a month, you're still only talking 10 to 15 leads. When you think about your cost per lead, you know that you're going to need thousands to be able to do that. So then you got to figure out, well, what's going to be your return on investment. So you got to think about how much is the house in your area, right? What's your average price point, either as an agent or even in general? Because if you're in LA, and I don't know what they charge in LA or San Fran or some of these bigger markets.
You know more. Yeah.
You would think it has to be. Tell us what your leads cost, because I would imagine, again, it's a sliding scale. If you were to go to somewhere like Petersburg in our market, where the average price is probably, in the single hundreds, you need to be able to figure out what your return on investment is and what you want to make, right? So if you're a new agent, a team agent, if you're building a team, if you're whatever you're doing, if you're the guy that's picking marketing, you probably figure this is how much I want to make for every dollar I spend.
Yeah.
And if you're listening and you're like, nah, I've never done that.
Do it. Start doing it. Yeah. I'm trying not to like run into like the conversion discussion, but it's just kind of like, if you're only getting 1 to 2 leads a month at this price, the odds are not in your favor.
And we can talk conversion. So, I mean, if you look at conversion percentages, right, what do you think Zillow conversion is? Any idea?
I would say 5%.
I think you're about right. When you look at things, they will tell you that, some could maybe hit like 10% conversion, maybe in like a great market and a perfect market. And places like Realtor.com will actually tell you the same thing, that they're about 5%. And their best agents are at about 9%. Zillow falls in line with that, not only from the numbers we've seen personally, but from talking to other teams, from talking to them. It really seems like you're about a 5 to a 10% conversion at best. So, at 5% conversion, right? I mean, you need 20 leads, right, to get a deal
at $500 a lead.
Yeah, so at $500 a lead, that's 10,000, right? Is that 10,000?
Yeah,
that's 10,000 bones. So then you got to ask yourself, what's your average commission, right? So that's in a normal market, that's about a $325,000 house. So if you're doing this and you're spending 10 grand a month to
make 9
20 leads to make 9, and then you still have to pay broker splits, or if you're in a scenario like I am, right? I'm the team leader. So for me, I'm giving away half of that income on those leads. So for the agent that's getting them, that's maybe not purchasing them, that's a part of our team, they're happy because great, they just made 5 grand. But if I had to spend 10 grand to make 5, now I'm losing 5 so that he can make 5, right? So you really have to figure that out. Now that's a blanket scenario. Obviously, if it didn't work in markets, then people just wouldn't do it. So
for sure.
So you have to figure out your numbers. What's the return you want? Most people would love to say they would like to make $5 for every one they spend. So if you're going to spend $10,000 a month on leads, you would hope that it's making you about $50,000. Now that's a pretty good ROI. If I could do 5 to 1, I'm spending that dollar every single month, and I'm going to keep increasing it and scaling however I can. But ask yourself, is it worth it for even a 2 to 1 return? If you were to spend 5 grand but you made 10 grand at the end of the month, is it worth it? Right? Maybe, but again, you're still breaking down, are you a team? Are you
I was gonna say, like, if you're a
leads?
solo, then maybe, but if you're like a team, you got other type of splits and obligations, then you might be like,
Then you got to throw in the new thing with Zillow, right? And that's Zillow Flex. So Zillow Flex may not be in your area yet, but from what we've seen, we feel like it's pretty much getting everywhere nowadays.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, Zillow Flex is essentially a referral-based payment with Zillow. So they're going to take, I believe it's 30 to 35% of the
correct,
deal.
sir.
But you pay them nothing. So me personally, I actually like programs like this because I know if we get nothing from it, it costs me nothing. I didn't lose anything. But the flip side is as we get closings and the better they do, we give up a pretty hefty referral fee. But I mean, if you're an agent and an agent called you on the phone and said, do you want a free listing? I'll give it to you for 30%, right? What are you going to say? Well, most people are going to say yes, right? Yeah. So that's the way I look at it. And here's the issue though with Zillow Flex is you had to be spending at least $3,000 a month typically to get into Zillow Flex. And from what we've seen in our market, it was much higher. It was people that were spending $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month with Zillow. Those were the teams that were allowed to get into the Zillow Flex program, which then begs the issue that if you're paying $500 a lead, are you now competing with the guy that's doing Zillow Flex that's not paying anything for the lead?
Yeah.
But that's just paying the referral fee.
Zillow Flex is more expensive than the person who's doing a Zillow Premier Agent. Premier Agent is basically what we were describing earlier. And I thought that was like pretty interesting when you break it down, because it's like with like that Flex, you're paying out like 35%, let's say, but you only get that one lead. Whereas if you've got like a $4,000 budget, maybe you get that one lead, but you also get your other 19 leads. Because I think one thing that I knew it, but it didn't really occur to me is that, like, we say 5%, but when you look at, they're saying 5% within 90 days. There's those other leads that like they might in 6 months. So you still have those coming in. You've already purchased them, you don't pay them. So like as you get paid on those with like the Flex, it's like, well, you get that one lead and you're paying. So he's like, when you average out, let's say you close 4 more, but maybe in 6 months or 12 months, he was like, when you start dividing that per close cost, he was like, it's much lower. He was like, so you can be around like 14% back to Zillow versus the 35% referral for that one lead. And I was like, that makes sense to us, because like for us, we talk a lot about like remarketing. So it's like maybe that lead doesn't close in 90 days, but we're remarketing to them. They come back to us eventually. And we have this, so every month we've got, 20, now 40, now 60. So we're building up this database. Whereas with the Flex, it's like, you just got that one. Yeah. So it is an interesting, situation to be in. But as you mentioned, you've got to be cranking out dough already just to, kind of get that, even get in the program.
Yeah, and I think, Zillow Flex, I think it's a great thing if you can get into it, if you're already killing it or trying to, or maybe it's new to your market. And the reason they essentially did Zillow Flex, from what I heard, essentially was the fact that any agent could come in and say, all right, I'll give you my $500 a month for my one lead. But the reality, Galen, is how many agents actually call their leads that they pay for?
Not enough. And what I think you and I have learned over the last, let's say 24 months, is that even the agent that says, hey, you don't have to worry about me. I'm going to call my leads. I'm going to lock it down. No problem. Like that guy, he still falters at some point, not all the time, but it's not enough. You almost need like an ISA will just like guarantee the call, and then proceed for that. But
so that's why they did Flex though, because you had all these agents that could come in and buy leads, but then they weren't actually following up on leads. And then
Zillow hates that.
Well, they were actually getting, and again, Zillow doesn't make any money out of those leads that they just sold to you, but what it does reflect on Zillow is Zillow just gave me this realtor to try to inquire on the property, and now this person's not getting with me, so Zillow must not be a reliable place to try to get somebody to help me, right? So Zillow Flex is kind of fixing that for Zillow by saying, hey, if we're going to put you on Flex, we're putting you here because we know you guys are spending, converting, selling a lot of houses. So it's mostly teams that are doing hundreds and sometimes thousands of deals a year that are getting into Flex because they know that these teams have the operations, the bandwidth, the systems to close and follow up on these leads.
And it's kind of interesting with Zillow Flex, like you obviously have to be a premier agent. You have to use the Zillow CRM for the lead. You have to update it weekly. And then you also have to remit their payment to them within 15 days of the closing. Preferably, they want it the same day as closing straight from the closing company or the title company. So it's like those are extra steps. Now, if you're already an agent, you're already a team that's performing well. That's an easy thing for you. So that is not a big deal. But if you are one of those guys where you're just like, oh, I didn't update my lead, or I was going to, it's like you're going to be decimated and kicked out pretty quick.
Yep, 100%. And that's most of the referral-based services because we deal with many of them. And it's the same thing.
Zillow leads, they're not bad. They're not great, right? It's really just how much money you have. Be sure to calculate that. Be familiar with your budget, familiar with your return on investment.
Yep.
Because that's really going to kind of dictate your own success.
Yeah, so what I would recommend in closing is that you pick 2 alternatives at least. Don't throw it all into Zillow. If you wanted to try Zillow, maybe try the same amount of budget in something like realtorhomes.com and then compare. See how much you convert in either one and see is the conversion rate higher in Zillow. Because if it's not, and you're spending a fifth of the money on something else and converting at the same rate, then you may want to shift that budget over and try to get more conversion. But if it does work, if you're in a great market, maybe your price point's awesome, maybe you're getting good leads, maybe you've gotten into Flex, keep killing it. If you have any questions on how to set up marketing, on how to set up CRMs, on training, anything like that, if you're looking for someone to partner with, we're doing trainings every week live, every single week, multiple a week technically. We do one call every 2 weeks, one call every Monday. If you'd like to get into our training calls, feel free to reach out to us. Again, you can get me at jared@centralvarealty.com, and you can reach Galen by
Galen at centralvarealty.com or your realtor's favorite realtor, RVA.